Diego Pavia calls out the Big Ten and says Vandy is set to run the state of Tennessee. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com. Get 50% off your first year. All right, we got to jump into it, as Diego Pavia had a lot to say during a conversation on an interview with the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. And, man, he made a lot of different comments on Vanderbilt and NIL deals and all kinds of stuff. But we got to start with some jabs at the Big Ten. And Pavia played, for different programs, obviously played for New Mexico State. He was asked about, the Big Ten and different conferences. And he said, look, you want to play with the best. You don't want to play with the Big Ten. You ignore those calls. Basically saying he got phone calls from Big Ten teams in the offseason about a potential transfer. He went on to say the difference between playing a loaded SEC schedule versus a Big Ten schedule. He said the Big Ten, you have teams like Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State. In the SEC, you got all dogs. You only have 4 games in a year in the Big Ten. The SEC, it's like week after week after week. Like, you're going to get beat on. The Big Ten, you're not going to get beat on with Purdue and Nebraska, etc. Vandy quarterback also took a shot at Iowa. He said, you only have to score 7 points to beat a team like Iowa. Pavia also made the case that the SEC has better players. He said, look, in the trenches as well, the SEC, it's just different. He said, let's think about this. Best pass rushers are from the SEC, except for Abdul Carter. Like, you'll find 1 or 2 in the Big Ten. But Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia, I mean, it is the us against the world mentality. And, again, love the pride in the SEC. I mean, this is fantastic. A lot of Big Ten fans have been, crying for, we're on a level playing field now because Michigan won a championship and Ohio State won a championship. So dominant Big Ten. Look, we still know where the best football is played. It's in the SEC. We still know where the most draft picks come from. It's in the SEC. And here's a guy, Diego Pavia, who's straight up telling you the SEC is better than the Big Ten, and for all those reasons. So love it. Love the firepower coming from Diego Pavia. Near the end of the interview, he was asked if the goal is for Vanderbilt to be the top program in the state of Tennessee. Pavia said on Bussin' with the Boys, quote, Vanderbilt is going to run Tennessee after this year. Like, this is going to be the new staple of college football. It's going to happen here at Vanderbilt. He went on to say everyone wants to come to Tennessee because of Nashville. They want to come to Nashville, so Vanderbilt. And then when we have the most money in NIL, like, why not come here? We literally just have to win this year, and it'll take care of itself. Of course, Vanderbilt coming off of one of their best seasons since post-James Franklin. Obviously, they won 7 games this past year. Huge, monumental, historical win over Alabama. Vandy did lose to the Vols this season, though, at home. I think as somebody put it, yeah, I mean, it was close for a quarter, and then Tennessee did their thing. They are also winless against Tennessee since, I believe, 2018. So, if you're going to run the state of Tennessee, I think it starts with beating Tennessee if you're Vanderbilt. But, look, they won their fair share, right? 2005 they won, 2012, 2013. 2016, 2017, 2018. So, there was a stretch where they were winning. But it's been a little bit one-sided. Tennessee won. Go look at the last few. 42-17, 45-21, 56-0, 48-24, and then 36-23 last year. But Pavia believes in this Vanderbilt program, and you give him credit for that. They will by the way, play Tennessee on November 29th in Knoxville. But again, I'm not going to discredit the kid for making the offseason entertaining. It is mid-June, and we're talking about Vanderbilt football. So he is doing his job in hyping up his school and getting some attention. A few other quotes here. Pavia was asked, can you guys beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa? He said, for sure, I have no doubt. We got the guys to do it. We got the firepower. We've got the depth. We'd be selling ourselves short if I told you we don't have the faith that we can win the national championship. And the guys on the podcast kind of pressed him on. They're like, you really think that you guys can win a national championship? And he was like, look, that's got to be the mentality. And again, I respect it. Like, I think most quarterbacks around the country should feel like we are going to win. Like, nobody's going to beat us and whatever. But also, I think you have to be realistic. And again, Vanderbilt was very good last year. It was an incredible season. But I think they kind of snuck up on some people, right? Like, maybe not everybody was taking them seriously. I don't think they're sneaking up on anybody this year. I think they're going to get everybody's best shot. So, Lee and company, I like what they've done with the roster. I think they've upgraded in the portal on the offensive line, some new receivers, some new defensive pieces. Again, love what they've done. But as somebody said, just to me this week, just because you upgraded doesn't mean you're better than all the other teams. Like, you can be tremendously better, but still lose games because the other teams you're playing are either better or they're playing at home or whatever. A few more here from the Pavia interview. Diego Pavia did go on to say he was offered more than $4 million by an SEC program following this past season. He said, I don't know if I'm supposed to share, but anywhere from $4 to $4.5 million, confirming it was an SEC program who made the offer. Of course, Pavia chose to remain with Vanderbilt for his final season of college football. Received another year after preliminary injunction was granted to allow former JUCO players an extra year of eligibility. And it's unclear what SEC school may have been the most interested in him. Spring transfers from SEC schools are not allowed to leave for another in-conference program while maintaining eligibility. So this would have had to been back in December, right? And you had schools that added potential starting quarterbacks during that window, including Oklahoma, Auburn, Kentucky, and Mizzou. So, going to assume perhaps it was one of those. Oklahoma went and got John Mateer from Washington State. Auburn went and got Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma. Kentucky went and got Zach Calzada. And Mizzou got Bo Pribula from Penn State. All projected starting quarterbacks at those schools. But, again, making a claim saying that not naming the program, but said multiple teams reached out to him through family members to gauge interest on a potential transfer after the year, and saying it was in the $4 to $4.5 million range from an SEC school. So, again, just a fun story there as well, but also shows like, man, what's Vanderbilt paying him, right? I mean, he went on to say, I think something like, oh, it's about winning. And I know I can win here at Vanderbilt and all this, but like, I'll just tell you this, like, if it had been Mizzou, it's a pretty good roster. If it had been Oklahoma, going to have a good defense with Brent Venables. So again, just kind of talking it out here. Auburn, tons of weapons there. So, but that is the choice he made. He's sticking to Vanderbilt, and we'll see if Vanderbilt is better this year. Spending a good bit of our time talking Vanderbilt. Didn't think we'd be doing that here in the middle of June on Locked On SEC. To cap all this off, we talked about Pavia taking shots at the Big Ten. Well, Tuesday afternoon, Illinois coach Brett Bielema was asked if he had any comments on Pavia's comments, and Bielema kind of brushed it off, saying, I understand what he's saying, but he's regurgitating what's being said to him, I think. So listen, the Big Ten, I grew up in this league, was very successful at Wisconsin. I think on any given Saturday, anybody can get anybody, and that's what played out in the bowl game, right? Him saying, Illinois, you beat South Carolina in the bowl game. He added, I think in the last 3 years, the evolution of college football with the portal, NIL, has created a level playing field that has never been seen before, and I think it's trending more that way than going back to the way it was. A lot of people want to live in the past. That quote to me says, Brett Bielema is trying to say, oh, the SEC, I was in the past, them winning championships. if you want to say it's the Big Ten's error, great, but it's Ohio State and Michigan. Now, look, if Penn State goes and wins it all this year, absolutely. Big Ten has a claim to say 3 different teams ran through and won the national championship. Does anybody watching the show want to put money on Penn State to win the title? Like if I said you got to put next week's paycheck on Penn State to win it all, or you lose your check, would you make that bet? James Franklin to win the big game, the biggest games? I don't think so. But regardless, hey, it was fun fodder from Diego Pavia, and love him taking shots at the Big Ten. And look, the SEC just won national championship in men's basketball, just won a national championship in softball. They got as great a chance as anybody to win a national championship in baseball. So we'll see. 2025 is looking to be a pretty good year for the SEC. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Coming up next, college football, future of the playoff discussions being had. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Hey, but first, I want to remind you guys, if you have ever checked your bank account and wondered where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, whatever it is, going to the movies, ordering those streaming services, it's easy to lose track of where all your money is going. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. They're going to be your personal CFO, giving you full vision, full visibility, and control over your finances. And they are not just a budgeting app. They are a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, all your investments, all your spending in one place. Stop managing your money, start building your wealth. And managing money with your partner is going to be smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals, stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You can use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com. It's going to get you 50% off your first year. I said that, 50% off your first year. That's at monarchmoney.com, monarch.com, monarchmoney.com. Locked On College for half off your first year. Go check them out today. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC, part of Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And I want to get to the story. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports posted this a couple days ago, and then On3 had another piece up on it yesterday. But basically, Ross Dellinger saying there's been an update on playoff expansion, saying commissioners are expected to get a presentation from the college football playoff director, Rich Clark, this week during their annual meetings happening in Asheville. He said the presentation is going to focus on adjustments to the strength of schedule, which is the metric used by the selection committee, or a metric used by the selection committee. Clark and the CFP staff have spent the last several weeks studying ways to create data points to be used in the playoff selection. Those are going to be more heavily weighted on a team's strength of schedule, even using outside mathematicians and data analysts to assist in the endeavor. And the adjustments are seen as a step to maintaining the selection committee's role in a playoff that incorporates a big number of at-large spots, such as the proposed 16-team playoff, 5 automatic bids, and the plus 11 at-large format. So, as Ross says, SEC officials have publicly encouraged such a change to the selection criterion. The CFP expansion to 16 may very well hinge on this selection criteria change. I love this. This is what it's all about. And the strength of schedule has to matter. We looked at Indiana's schedule last year. We all laughed at it. We said that's a joke. Look, and I get it, not every SEC schedule is created equal. But the SEC, more than any other conference, they require everyone to play a non-conference game against a Power 5 program, Power 4 program, as one of their non-conference games. You got to go schedule a team from the ACC or the Big 10 or the Big 12 or whatever. This is where the SEC differs from the Big 10. The Big 10 does not have that requirement. And I've talked about this before in that, when you look at the schedule from last year, the two, national championship winning teams. Michigan, their non-conference 2 years ago was playing ECU and Bowling Green and teams of the like. Ohio State's non-con last year was Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall. again, the SEC goes out of their way to try to schedule a tough non-conference game, and we know it. I mean, A&M plays Notre Dame, LSU plays Clemson. The list goes on and on and on with the big games that they've created. But regardless, SEC's moved toward an automatic qualifier-heavy format. The Big Ten supports the 4-4 and then 2-2-1. And that was stymied as pushback, even from its coaches. The SEC, if the season criteria is adjusted, we don't know what format they're going to go with, but the SEC and Big Ten do hold the authority over future playoff format. Their disagreement creates a fascinating situation that, as Ross Dellinger says, could end in no expansion for 2026. So Pete Nakos over at On3, he chimed in. He said the playoff management committee, 10 FBS commissioners, and the Notre Dame athletic director meeting in Nashville this week. And sources tell On3 that this week's meeting is viewed as a, quote, reset. He says there's a Big Ten SEC battle brewing over formatting. One more thing he adds, sources have told On3 there is no clear direction on the formatting, with the ACC and the Big 12 backing the 5+11, the Big Ten backing the 4-4, 2-2-1, and SEC coaches, at least from the reports from the meetings in Destin, a lot of them did like the 5+11 model. Keeping the 12-team straight seeding format remains on the table for 2026 as well. Now, Paul Feinbaum, he was talking about it this week about, the human element, and that, the BCS ranking system we had for 1998 to 2013 used a combination of human polls and computer-based methods to rank teams, and that would produce the two best teams in the country according to their metric, and that's who would play in the BCS title game. On Tuesday, Paul Feinbaum was asked about whether or not there's real danger in losing the human committee during his appearance with Greg McElroy and Cole Kublik in the morning. And he said at this point he doesn't expect a change, but admitted major negative reaction in the past couple seasons has spurred criticism of the playoff committee. And here's what Paul Feinbaum said. He said, quote, I think because there's such a negative reaction the last year and there was a major attack versus many around here against what the humans did. I remember I sat here with Hunter Yurachek, the Arkansas AD, a couple of weeks ago in Destin, and he was defending it while almost everyone around him in the building was being critical. So I think I'll stay this way. It will stay this way. I think it's easy to criticize BCS. And quite frankly, they were pretty accurate. What's interesting is these people on the committee are using analytics. It's not like they're just going off eye test, but more than likely, it's going to stay the same. And even for those who want to see the computers, Feinbaum doesn't believe the frustration with the committee makes much sense. He says, in principle, I think there has been a 2-year overreaction and more of a 1 year. I would like someone to show me which of the 3 SEC schools that didn't get in last year should have gotten in. It really has much more to do with the ACC sneaking Clemson in. They did win the league. It was almost them getting in by winning, and the committee looking at SMU and saying, you know what, they played a good game. Let's give them a participation trophy and let them in. I will say, look, the committee, their approach, I just think that the discussion has to be had around this. And I've brought this up before. Ohio State played no good non-conference games last year, and that didn't matter at the end of the year for them getting in. They went on to win the championship. 2 years ago, same thing in Michigan. Played a terrible non-conference schedule. It didn't matter. The SEC is going out of their way to schedule tough non-conference games. So when they lose it, they're getting largely dinged by the committee. So I say, don't schedule those games because they're not giving you any credit. Like we said, in basketball, the college basketball selection committee for the NCAA tournament, they give you credit for tough losses. They go, well, if you're Auburn, you went on the road and lost at Duke in November, we're going to put a check mark in the column for that. You were tested. That was a tough test. But in football, losses, you get, knocked all the way down. How dare you lose a tough game? Well, we scheduled a tough opponent. Don't care. You lost. Okay, well then, you know what we're not going to do? Schedule that tough game if we don't have to. The playoff committee is just putting emphasis on wins and losses, and I get that's where the bulk of the attention should be. You got to win your games, but not all schedules are created equal. And when Indiana doesn't play a damn good team all year, don't reward them and put them in just because, they have a lot of wins. Again, who'd you beat? Who have you beaten? Give me your 3 best resume wins. And if you can't rattle off 3 incredibly impressive wins, then again, this is where the committee really needs to do a better job of vetting who they're putting in and who is deserved of being in, right? They do the whole who passed the eye test and all this. No, who deserves it? Who went out there and earned it? Who had 3 great wins, 4 wins, 5 great wins, whatever it is that impressed the hell out of you? And it wasn't just beating Marshall and Akron and East Carolina or whatever. So yeah. And then again, there was the whole thing 2 years ago when Florida State got left out, all because Jordan Travis got hurt. I get it. I get why they did it. It still was pretty disrespectful for a team that was undefeated from the ACC, had an incredible season, should have been the 14 playoff, but that is gone and in the past. One more note here. The Collective Association, this is from On3, reported had members from Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Tennessee on Capitol Hill this week, meeting with staffs and lawmakers to discuss the House settlement and the state of college sports. They invited several congressional offices to share their perspective on the impacts of the House versus NCAA settlement. So interesting that they have a few members from the SEC and Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Tennessee there talking about that. All right, before we wrap up here and head to the next segment, did want to give a shout out to LSU and Arkansas, both taking care of their business yesterday in Omaha. So they will play each other once again tonight. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, LSU and Arkansas, if LSU wins, they are on to the championship series in the College World Series. If Arkansas wins, then they will play another game on Thursday, and the winner of that will advance to the College World Series. So Arkansas has to win twice. LSU just has to win once, and they are heading to the College World Series. It sucks they're on the same side of the bracket. Wish this could have been the opposite sides, and we could have had SEC versus SEC in the College World Series, but that's not how it shaped up. By the way, Louisville is going to play Coastal Carolina on the other side. Louisville will have to beat Coastal twice. Coastal only has to win once, and they are in to the College World Series. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, final segment here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We got some tidbits we got to jump into, so let's dive right into it. Let's start with Alabama picking up a commitment from a 2026 quarterback. The Elite 11 going on in Los Angeles with a lot of the quarterbacks on Tuesday morning. Make some headlines. It's four-star quarterback Jet Tamala announcing his flip from Iowa State to the Crimson Tide. It comes just a few weeks after his unofficial visit, first trip to Tuscaloosa. He's 6'4", 205 pounds, picking up some high praise from 24/7 Sports, describing him as the kind of the best case scenario, following up a brand name in Keelan Russell. And so Jet Tomlin, it's Jet with two T's, J-E-T-T. Going to go to Alabama, play for Kalen DeBoer and company. So that's a nice pickup there for the Alabama Crimson Tide. How about over at Texas A&M? Mike Elko landing an elite running back, four-star running back KJ Edwards, beating out the likes of Texas, Alabama, LSU, the Aggies, picking up the Carthage, Texas native, one of the best prospects in the country, and the number 47 overall player in the class of 2026, the number 3 running back in the nation. He's also regarded as the number 7 player from the state of Texas. 5'10". Pretty ridiculous if he was 7 foot tall. 5'10". Took an official visit to A&M this past weekend and then made his announcement this week. The Aggies initially offered him a scholarship back in April of last year. So they've been on his recruiting trail. And the Aggies recruiting class looking pretty strong. 17 recruits already. 15 of them considered blue chip prospects. Their class ranks number 6 on 3 and the 24/7 Sports composite. Mike Elko, by the way, was making the rounds on his coach's tour, and he was in Fort Worth last night bragging about several of his players, including Cassius Howell, defensive end, saying since we got here, we've had as many defensive linemen drafted as any school in the SEC at 11. So I think Cassius Howell is a guy that jumps out at you. I think he's going to be an elite player. Just an interesting player. I think he spent his first few years at Bowling Green, had 9.5 sacks 2 years ago, had 4 sacks at A&M last year. But remember, he was kind of playing in a rotational reserve role with the Shamars there. And, there were dudes they had there. Nick Scorton was there. So Cassius Howell, just maybe a name we haven't talked enough about that might be a guy that has a huge breakout year in the SEC this year. A couple more notes on what Elko had to say at A&M. He said, if you study the teams in the playoff last year, those teams were 80% homegrown starters. They started at that program and played at that program. And we've got a good blend of guys that we've either brought into or we're trying to that were recruited into what we are about and that are now providing some leadership for us, like Torian York, Will Lee, Cassius Howell, et cetera, et cetera. So, again, if you haven't really come around on the Aggies can be a contender in the SEC in 2025, they absolutely can. Marcel Reed, that backfield is so dynamic with Le'Veon Moss back and Amari Daniels and Ruben Owens. I mean, they just got pieces everywhere. So certainly something to keep an eye on as we get going for the 2025 season. One more note here in hoops. Florida and Miami are finalizing a neutral site meeting for the upcoming season. So that'll be fun to watch. The Gators and Hurricanes playing in Jacksonville on November 16th. And then Tennessee guard Zakai Ziegler appealing that denial of his motion for a preliminary injunction. He's still trying to add another year of eligibility in the suit. His attorneys argue he will miss out on millions of dollars in NIL earnings if he can't play next season. He appeared in 138 games over his 4 years at Tennessee, started every game last year, set new career highs with close to 14 points per game. So Zakai Ziegler, we'll see if he ends up getting another year. I don't think it's going to happen, but look, why not? Try your best. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen today. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do us a favor. Click over to the YouTube app, search Locked On SEC, hit subscribe. We're closing in on 9,000 subscribers. We have a goal of hitting 10,000 by the start of college football season. We're just a couple months away. Please subscribe and like on Locked On SEC on YouTube and help us reach that goal. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Come on back and see us then.